Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Susan. Hi, Diana.
Hi, Eric. Good.
And hey, folks out there in Zoomville. This is Diana and my first Zoom presentation. And momentarily, I'm going to share a screen of a small presentation that we've done. So you all will disappear for me, but I'll look forward to seeing you on the other side at that point. And thank you, Susan, so much for the invitation and for the introduction, and really most importantly for the work that you do at 6 Feet, that you and Mike and Lydia, as the principals that I'm aware of, do, and now also for all you folks who are part of this, who are part of that community that is being built and that comes together at this time and at this distance. Welcome to my home. Diana, do you want to say anything, or should I move on?
Just thank you to the whole team at 6 Feet also. This has been such a great adventure for us diving into this archive. And well, you'll find out more about this, but for me, it was kind of a fairly new engagement with Instagram too, which I don't really engage with that often. So this has been a great and fun experience, but we'll be talking more about that. So Eric, go.
And I think for both of us, although I have an Instagram account, I do not remember any of my passwords or anything like that, and I've only used it twice. So as with Diana, it's a great opportunity for us to delve into that. And one thing I would say is that when we were invited to do this about 2 weeks ago, Diana and I, going into the Instagram stream, have worked from our computers, which is, I've come to realize, a little different than how likely most people use it, that is, looking at their phones. So when we go to this slide presentation, you will see some things in the format that they appear on a screen. In other words, if we include the text, it is on the right side, the comments, it's on the right side of the image, as opposed to scrolling down, and so that they're both available at the same time. And just to highlight again what Susan said, if you can, when the presentation comes up, reduce that speaker view so that it doesn't impede any of the images. That's probably best. And if you could look at it on a laptop or tablet or whatever.
Oh, just one quick technical thing. Some of you may end up with your video block on top of images. You can actually grab that little video block and you can move it around on your screen wherever you want. So if it gets in the way of a photograph, feel free to either just close it out or just move it.
Okay, and so I'm gonna click share screen here and see if this comes up. You should get a black screen.
I see
Are you?
Screen.
No, how about?
There you go.
Almost. Okay, so everybody's got a black screen, and now coming into an image, and I'm going to get rid of the little video thing so I can see these images. And what I would say is that with Susan's request, it was to be able to, my understanding was to serve a perceived need with the photo community here, or a perceived desire to talk to some people or about looking at photographs, in a sense, different ways to look at photographs. And that's the way that Diana and I approach this. And so there's less emphasis on authorship, for example. We have a list of all the images that we've used, whether they're from the Instagram stream or from some of the images that we place next to them, and we'll be mentioning them likely throughout, and we can provide a list of those to give to Susan to send out if desired. But we were more interested in the conversation between photographs. That's the way we took it. And so we're going to begin with this image, and then we're going to move through 9 slides as kind of a silent suite. And we're just going to let the images have the conversation, and then you'll hear from us again.
Okay, so Eric, that's a beautiful suite. I love seeing that, and I love setting the pace for this presentation with those comparisons, because I think, you know, a lot of what well, Susan, you mentioned this kind of, how are we thinking and talking about photography now? We're bringing in other voices. Eric, over the course of this week, you said something very succinctly. We're physically boxed in these days, but globally connected. To me, I think photography, what is it doing for us now? It's serving us as a kind of form of communication. So in this game that we're playing, we're putting images together or finding thematic kind of suites in the Instagram feed that maybe say something about how this language works. We're just kind of exploring it as we go. So when I saw Eric's beautiful kind of prelude, I thought, well, I want to try and find places where images speak to each other, whether historically, intuitively, formally, very literally. And this image from the Instagram feed is by Laura Noel. And to me, this is an image that really is kind of about photography. In some ways, it's also about this moment. She's showing us a beautiful butterfly and a beautiful mountain landscape, but that's not really what we're looking at all. I'm starting here because I think photography is all about finding meaning in unexpected places. It's all about images standing in for reality, or maybe finding a different kind of reality. Eric, if you want to show us the next. Immediately, Laura Noel's image made me think of Alex Soth. Same feeling in this image, where you're looking for truth in the corner of a room. I think we're all closed into kind of boxes these days, and maybe that's enhancing our ability to look closely at things around us. The next image is by Luigi Giri. Giri finds joy in this kind of simulacrum of a seascape behind these people. It's a very literally the same thing. How do we bring this sense of the outside to ourselves when we can't get to it? In the great sea of the internet, I have a tendency to try and impose order on what I'm looking at. So these images, the first kind of couple of images I'm showing, I put under the category anxiety, because, you know, here we are in our rooms, what do we do? You know, so this is part of that. The next image, Eric, is from the Instagram, from the Life at 6 Feet feed. Mickley PH, like many of us, was inclined to create a kind of diary in these times. I think all of us, I mean, I hate to say this, but I sort of feel like we sort of thought, oh, well, I'll do it for this couple of months while we're here. It'll be this finite time. And now I'm wondering if people are giving up on counting the days, because who knows how many days it'll be. So many of us are closed in with our families, who are our loved ones, but also our tormentors and the people that we worry about the most. Mickley has to say in her text here, before lockdown began, we had a nice, clear system for chores. We even had a little whiteboard checklist situation where each person had assigned tasks for the day. Now we do not. Things are beginning to slip, obviously. So a couple of other photographers who have moved into a kind of diaristic mode. This is Eleanor Carucci, who is not from the Instagram. She's doing her own diary about being, she's based in New York. She's an Israeli photographer, but she's living with her husband and 2 children in a 900 square foot apartment in New York, and feeling it, as you can see from her text. The other day I made a list for the kids of all our bank accounts, our life insurance, the information of our accountant, all our passwords. I was like, this is just in case. So she's worried like the rest of us. The next image. This is by Neil Ochka, photographer based in Queens, New York, like Eleanor, enclosed in a New York space with, in this case, with his mother and his ex-wife. Both Eric and I were drawn to his series of images, a lot of which, many of which begin with the day number, kind of as though the way a prisoner writes on the, on their cell wall, day 110, day 99. In this particular one, he either has stopped counting the days, or it didn't matter here. It sounds, I felt a growing sense of sadness in the house last week, and I think we need to have a family meeting about ways to fight this. Many of Neil Ochka's images are quite humorous about the family, this little microcosm of 3 trying to keep their spirits up. But this looks like it was something of a challenging day.
Seriously quarantined. I mean, when they get out for the first time in 2 months, I think, there's a great image of mom on the street just unsteady as well. You've been locked up for so long, and it's both a freedom and a fearful situation. It's a fascinating series.
Yeah, and beautiful. I mean, in a way, it's one of the good things that is coming out of this, is that people are using their time in isolation and finding modes. I mean, it's good to see how it's inspiring. And then actually you can move on to the next image. So another kind of category that I fabricated for myself in the morass of Instagram was isolation and creativity. And what interested me about this image, which is by Deborah Trebitz, is that I think sometimes when you are isolated from the outside world, your focus becomes intensified. Many photographers do this. In some ways, it's a lot about what photography is kind of finding, again, finding meaning in unexpected places. And when we're removed from the world, we're allowed to just hone in on an idea microscopically and go for it. And no one's around to stop doing that. So Deborah Trebitz found a world in this hosta leaf. And in a way, she found something new and unfamiliar in something that might be familiar in other circumstances. You can go to the next image. I could have compared this to any number of photographers. In a way, it doesn't take the COVID pandemic to bring this to photography, but here's Elliot Porter, again, finding almost an abstraction in nature. And the next image is Minor White, again, kind of bringing his intense sensibility to, this is actually a piece of metal, I think, not that it needs to be identified, but the kind of reason I picked both of those photographers is that they bring they tended to kind of impute a sense of spirit and soul and essence to forms that were natural and some unnatural forms like this one by Minor. And in some ways, I think this too is what photography is all about. Okay, and you'll hear me say that a few times. Okay, so here's a lovely one from the Instagram feed, Life at 6 Feet. This is by Justin Cook, who I think is here in North Carolina. He was sent an abundance of packaged apple pies by his father. The text I didn't put here, but I'll read it to you. The text that went with this: I haven't seen my family in a while, so my dad ordered a bunch of B&G apple pies and had them delivered to me. These are an NC original treat found for sale at gas stations and made by hand in Winston-Salem. They taste great browned with butter in a cast iron skillet and then served with butter pecan ice cream. Also, my brother, Todd Cook Photo, that's his handle, left a bunch of his giant megalodon teeth here. So why not make a still life? So in a moment of inspiration that perhaps would never have happened outside the COVID isolation, he put the apple pies together with the shark's teeth and made this very cunning image. Eric, if you bring us the next one. So it might not have taken COVID to do this. There are a couple of other photographers who I just wanted to introduce here to this conversation. So here's Martin Parr, also fascinated by food and what it looks like. And then the next image is by Joseph Maida. I promised some of you sardines. Here they are. To my eye, these images rhyme in terms of kind of a deadpan humor, and also they rhyme a little bit gastronomically because of the fish and the sweet thing put together. So we're gonna have fun, believe me. But now we'll go to the other side of things. Eric, if you go to the next image. This is, I'm gonna ask you to indulge me here because I love dark landscapes. I just adore them. To me, they are both soothing and mysterious, maybe even scary, but maybe that's just me. But a lot of this is about intuitive pairings. So I'm going to allow myself this. This is Mike Bellamy's mountains, which are kind of monstrous, but they're kind of like sleeping monsters. I really love them. So there are a few others who've been, a few other photographers who have maybe like me been attracted to this black landscape. The next is by the Dutch photographer Avoiska van der Molen. She photographs forests at night. The next is probably familiar to a lot of you, Edward Steichen's The Pond, back from 1904. People were already enchanted by this kind of mysterious image. And the last I wanted to compare here, so this is Hiroshi Sugimoto's, from his Seascapes series. I picked, kind of to be perverse, I picked the one that I thought would be almost illegible here. And I'm just imagining if anybody is looking at this on an iPhone, you're looking at two black rectangles right now and you're thinking, what is she talking about? You know, but believe me, there are images there. And while the internet and the screen is bringing us everywhere these days, it's at times like this where I kind of really miss seeing a beautiful print in front of me. It's something that is hard to match here. On the other hand, the internet is bringing us all together tonight, and it can take us all sorts of places. So I'll let Eric have a turn now in this game we're playing.
So in scrolling through the Instagram feed there, one thing that caught my eye were quite a few pictures of hands as the expressive, with expressive gestures and kind of speaking for us. And of course, at a time that in essence, we're prohibited from touching others. They seemed especially important. And, you know, this one, it leads one in the little legend there in the comment on the right. Sonia Goidenko says, "Let me out." And it is this reaching out, reaching towards light. For me, it's also kind of a reverse selfie, you know, where you've got the appendage of what holds the camera, the arm, the shoulder to the arm, only it is facing the other way and reaching towards something, in this image still unattainable, but exemplified by the gesture. And additionally, as an image, I'm fascinated by the image of the hand, that is its projection, the shadow there on the left. So it's segmented, or in a sense, or has several different layers or levels to it, and seemed a good opening gesture for these images of the hand. Another by Mike Bellamy, who made the darker blue landscape that Diana was referring to. And this can be a little tough to see. It appears to be an older person's hand on a large animal, perhaps a horse, I would say probably. But for me, it's the quality of touch, which is so important, such an important way that we know the world, and something that an area in which we are challenged right now. You know, before COVID, I wasn't a fan of using sanitizer or wipes at the supermarket. In fact, I thought it was kind of dumb. And you know, now that stuff is everywhere, and our tactile sense is shifted a bit. And this image just really evokes the warmth and the feeling, and that's the literal feeling and the transformation into feeling, into a felt experience. This one, in which this person writes about her daughters, and so we assume that this is a daughter. And for me, it's there's the hand being used to shield in a way, not just reaching out to touch, but perhaps as protection or something. And this image operates in a way that is kind of the inverse of the opening one, with the arm and hand reaching out. So the person laying there is shielded or protected, holding themselves, and it is the shadow there that gets animated and reaches in another reaches in another direction. So that that tension there is strong for me. And then these also very different than the previous image, but also very much about touch. What kind of touch do we get today? The person on the left is lucky enough to be getting a COVID antibody test. The person on the right is lucky enough to be getting a haircut. I think probably all of us, certainly most of us, have considered both those things over these last 4 or 5 months. Also an opportunity to acknowledge, a shout out there for all the health workers and the amazing commitment and work that they're doing for the last 5 months. You know, no less so today, more so I'm sure than 4 months ago, and something we need to be grateful for and mindful of.
Yeah.
My mother has been shaving the sides of my head for me since I was 15. And, you know, so just as an image, again, the gesture, the hand, the arm, the closeness, the responsiveness, and I'm not sure that it's service, but I guess it's service in some way for people who can be together. And then this, Diana and I may have something to say about this Bridport lockdown. Had a lot of images on the feed, and I think this is at the start of them, and it seems to be kind of a related or perhaps parallel thing to Life at 6 Feet in Dorset, I believe, in England. And I saw this image, and it is an incredibly poignant tale. There's a lot of text to it. There's this image, and then, you know, if you were looking on your phone, you would then be scrolling down and lose sight of the image. If you're looking at it on the computer, the image is staying there, and you're scrolling down through the text. And so I've organized them in this kind of cinematic fashion about this young man, Ruben, with Down syndrome, who is partially cared for by his brother. And some time ago, they were in Andalusia picking olives, and then they come back and, you know, lockdown, they come back to Britain, and lockdown happens. And he ends up being institutionalized. And there he is on the other side of the glass there, descending into deep depression. He is not, you know, he can only see his brother and his brother's partner or his parents from the other side. And it's a very touching story.
And it's obviously a great example of how having the full story there, you know, brings a very poignant life to the images that you're looking at. I mean, it's kind of, it's I mean, to state the obvious, you know, but having that story and having the images together makes a whole world of these that wouldn't exist otherwise. You know, it's fascinating, and I think it's,
yeah, and it's not always necessary, but in this case, it is. It's the format for that.
Sure.
This one, the hands, again, even the way they communicate with each other and the kind of uprising gesture. My sense is that this is also hands on glass. It's a photographic image, I assume, on a scanner, on the glass of a scanner or a copy machine or something like that. And it is gestural aspect that caught my attention.
It has almost that Stieglitz grace of George O'Keeffe's hands. You know, I mean, I guess pictures of hands can do that, but there's something about that particular pose that is very tender and graceful. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful image.
Yeah. Although also, you know, with all the scanners are incredible about rendering, you know, even the cheapest scanners, all the dust and particulate matter and grease and stuff, and that kind of brings this into another realm as well. And then continuing with that gesture, and of course the confluence, everybody is an image maker now. Everybody's got the tools to make photographs, make videos. You know, the video of Chris Cooper in Central Park, the birder in Central Park, and the confrontation that occurred there, followed several days later by the excruciatingly horrific video of the murder of George Floyd. A different sense of the knee than taking a knee, the knee on the neck of a man that caused his death. And during COVID, as we're all contracting and not knowing the passion and the explosion, in a sense, that occurs in terms of Black Lives Matter and justice. And so into that stream, as well as we're all becoming further educated about this, this is also what people are making pictures of and sharing on Life at 6 Feet. And again, the hands and the gesture.
Right, and these images all over the country are speaking to each other. You know, I mean, there's this sense of, you know, my community is doing this, but your community too. All of these communities come together because we can see what each other are doing in a sense, you know.
Absolutely. And a resonance beyond our country. And I think about 4 years ago, when we did the first Photo Plus event called Photocraft, one of our keynote speakers was Fred Richin, a very important writer about photography. And he talked about the sort of, if I understood him correctly, he was talking about the dearth of iconic images, you know, like where the image of the moon, or images that appeared and now we're just inundated with them. And of course, shortly thereafter came the image of the little boy in Syria on the beach, an iconic image. But I think that these images that got promoted and shared, as they still are, you know, through last night and I'm sure through tonight, are making their way around the world. This is the visual conversation that's occurring, and to great effect.
In a way, it's not that we have a dearth of iconic images, it's that we have an overload of iconic images. You know, we have so many iconic images that we can't see them. You know, it's hard to see them now. You know, I mean, we're in an ocean of them. So, but thank God we are in some ways. So, okay, back to me. I'm gonna quote Eric, quoting Jean-Luc Godard. He said something that reminded me of something anyway this week. Godard said, a story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end, just not necessarily in that order. So, so I wanted to start moving toward some ending, although we're not at the end, don't get your hopes up. The ending category that I came up for images was the word release, and release in a good way from our incarceration. You know, we've all been hermetically sealed in a jar for months, you know, So to me, this jump rope image was the great release of exercise, which a lot of us, are just having to indulge in ways we might never have otherwise, because it's the only thing we can do. But you don't have to look at this image too long before you realize that there's someone in it who is not jumping rope. And that person is the photographer, whose text, which I don't include here, but I'll read it too. He writes, COVID-19 exercise. Frenda had to adjust her exercise routine since she is no longer able to attend hip-hop dance classes. Jumping rope is the new program, and Frenda is now up to 150 jumps per session. Me, I'm a slacker. By the way, this is eDove Photos is the handle of the photographer. So plainly, like a lot of us, these two are operating in two worlds, although they're in one space together. You have to come up with your own rhythm and your own thing, and you're there together. So that reminded me of the next image, which is, you've got it, by LaToya Ruby Frazier, which is called Me and My Mom's Boyfriend, Mr. Art, which is, I don't believe it was made during any kind of incarceration in a house of any kind, but it definitely speaks of people who are kind of forced to be together in one space, and therefore kind of carving out their own lives in two different rooms that are right next to each other. So anyway, I thought these two spoke to each other in a kind of interesting way. Yeah. So, okay, this from the Life at 6 Feet feed is by Tripak. It's the handle. And this girl on a shark really has stuck with me, and I keep I've asked myself why, and there are several things about it. Certainly it's the color and the motion, the sense of motion in it, which reminds me, brought me to the next image. This was the first thing I thought of, actually. I know it's odd. And a lot of this truly, again, it's just intuitive and drawing on images that are floating in my head for one reason or another. This is Dewey Hicks' image of Serena Williams just powering through. And obviously the colors, echo one another in these two, and the flying hair. I kind of like the way they are looking toward each other. The next image is another reason why I like the girl on the shark, is that it's just about childish joy, even in this, strange time when she has to be wearing this very rakish mask. It's quite beautiful. The image on the right is by Lartigue. It's a late image. I just found out, I think it was made when he was in his 80s, but he was obviously still had as sharp an eye as he had when he was 8 years old and first photographing, I guess. I also found the image on the left very elegant in a way. And if you take us to the next image, I started looking at fashion photographers, thinking, and it's not that this image came to mind immediately. This is by the Nigerian-American photographer Ike Ude, and who normally does things that are much more fantastical, although I like this image very much, but it was the one that kind of did the most for me visually with this little girl. That we have the echo of the lipstick is the same color as that mask, the shoulder, exposed shoulder in both cases, and the kind of drapey blue, and there's a glamour in both images that I really like. But we'll go to the last image in this series. I think the thing I really love is the sense of buoyancy and defying gravity in a way. That on the right, we have Rosemary Lang's Floating Bride. And this is from her series, Flight Research, it's called. So it is about defying gravity, and in a way, this bride is defying everything. So call it some wish fulfillment on my part, but I feel like we could all use a little flight out of here at some point. Okay, and then the next image. Again, if you'll indulge me, I just love this kind of magical image. I'm wanting images like this that just take me to a sort of otherworldly kind of space. It's a picture of fireworks, I think, made by Rebecca Weston 000 is her handle, taking us up into the sky. She took the photograph, I think, a few days after 4th of July this year. And it's just beautiful. And just I just paired it with a couple of other images that give me the same sense. The next is by Tokihiro Sato, just a forest image with little magical creatures that seem to be floating there. And the final image is by the final image is by my final image here is by the Korean artist Lee Jong-lok. Same thing, a tree that is glowing and taking us up into the sky. So I feel like we're ascending here, and I think we're going to ascend even further in the next image. So yeah, I'm kind of a sucker for these beautiful transporting images, and I just liked where they took me. So
Otherworldly.
Otherworldly, right.
And again, looking into the feed, I saw several images of the moon, which reminded me of some very early photography in the 1840s, maybe a little later, maybe 1850s, of the moon, you know, as the earliest photographers were making photographs, and look, there's an object reflecting light. And there are some amazing 19th century photographs of the moon. And now everybody has, often in the palm of their hand, the ability to render an image of our moon.
It never gets old. It's so wonderful.
And then from the feed as well, you know, it's obviously echoed the moon in its character in light, in the crescent kind of formation, the craters. I love seeing these two together. They're like, it's like looking at a stereograph without a viewer, you know, it's two eyes. It's like looking in the mirror for me sometimes. One literal and one more metaphoric. And, you know, I think in general, we often look at, there's certainly a strong undercurrent of photography as being very factual because it's indexical. It represents what was in front of the lens. And as if it fixes a moment in time, basically. And I think part of what Diana and I were looking at here, have been looking at, is in what I would say the instability of images rather than the fixity of them, that in different contexts, different things occur. In many ways, the images haven't changed, but we have changed by how we respond to those. The one on the right, you know, the circular form again, it had reminded me of Diana's earlier Elliot Porter with the lichen. These were opposite the hostel leaf, and Minor White's circular form. But this one, after looking at the sky in this slide presentation, really grounds us. It brings us back down, that close looking, but terrestrial and other at the same time.
Yeah, honing in, really bringing that focus to a place that, who knows, you might have, but I feel like in these times where, you know, that sense of urgency about it is enhanced somehow, you know, the urgency of looking hard at something, I guess, you know.
And then an image that really caught our attention, and obviously we looked at these independently from the safety of our own Instavilles. But another one, and this is part of that Bridport lockdown group, and not as sad a story in some ways as Reuben, but this person who had who has a dog behavior training business, and now that it's all closed down, they are making, they've gotten their old dogs out of retirement to show up, sit up, stand up, and be the actors in these videos on dog training. And to me, it's so much about photography, this domestic scene, this posed situation, this place where, you know, the picture of the camera there, the camera photographing them. I love the way it brings in the photographer, the viewer, these great elderly dogs. The one on the left has been deaf since birth, but they're really standing up for this in these times. And I think, you know, when we're at our best, we're all trying to do that.
Right. They know exactly how to behave in this situation. You know, it's just such a charming image anyway.
And so it was irresistible to combine with this wonderful 1930 photograph by August Sander, in which another dog and their charge or their partner are standing up or sitting up for the photographer. Just humorous. I think they're both humorous, but just what a lovely image, and just some of the things we love about photography, historically, visually, and a lot of it is about showing up.
Yeah, I love those together. Right, that dog speaking to us through the years, and the other two, and they're great. It's beautiful.
You know, after Sander made that picture, the kid rode off and the dog fell over. Just kidding. Anyway, that's the last pairing that we have, and today is a special day, and so we decided to dedicate this little presentation to the memory of two individuals, and there are at least 150,000 more, and likely quite a few more. But Maurice Berger was a cultural historian, a writer, and a curator, and photography was his specialty, and race and justice were his area. And so for several decades, he has carefully investigated and brought to our attention racial tropes and dog whistles, and positive moves and bad moves. And a man younger than myself, he died in March of COVID. And then the tireless advocate for justice and nonviolence, John Lewis, whose funeral is today. So good work and good trouble. And thank you for watching that. And then I'm gonna hop out of this screen sharing thing, which is gonna put me in a little limbo to flip back and forth between a couple of things, but then I'll get there and we can revisit any of the images. Hey, wait, that's good.
It worked.
That was easy. You know, or if anybody has any questions. I'm just seeing now the number 26 with chat, and I'm thinking, oh my, that's great.
Yes, will definitely. I don't even know if we said we want this to be a conversation. So, well, I suppose we should. Here we go. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we did have one question come in. So just to orient people to the space, we'll start off by typing questions, just in case anybody's sitting on anything. You can type them in the chat window. if you've got a question that's complicated, you can say like, unmute me, and I will come in and unmute you. Y'all are muted and you don't have the power to unmute yourselves yet. So I'll start with Titus had sent a question. Fred Richen said that photojournalism was to move governments to act on injustice, hunger, etc. With the proliferation of images such as the Black Lives Matter movement, can we expect, it moved, can we expect any effect, or do too many images simply numb viewers and governments and no positive results occur? So sort of a
I
question.
think there's something to be said for both those things. I think as agents of change, images can certainly be effective, but it's often hard for me to predict how that will happen or if that will happen. That shouldn't stop anybody from moving in that direction, but I think it's very uncertain no matter what your intentions are. Diana, you must know.
Yes, I have the answer. I'll tell you right now. No, I don't. In fact, I think it's the question of the moment when it comes to photography. You know, we are in an infinity of images now, you know, and that's part of why we're having this discussion, you know, and that's part of what these forums are about, is to try and sort out some meaning from them. We have more images than we could possibly look at every day. And so, yes, what happens to their meaning? Do we need to wait for some to rise like the cream to the top, you know, or do we need to proactively involve ourselves in it and look for the cream, you know, look for them, find them, see what meaning they have for each of us? I mean, certainly the role of photography is changing right now. I mean, it has been changing over the past several decades, but a couple of decades especially, you know, and so there's no right answer to this. You know, I hope, I don't feel like we will become numb to photographs. I think that their role will change for us though. And as we all have the agency to be photographers, and then as we all kind of become inured and you know, used to the idea of photographs being part of everything we do every day, you know, so I don't know if we're ever gonna, I mean, I think Fred may be right. There may not be the one photograph that stands for an entire movement or an entire, you know, phenomenon anymore. It's not going to work that way, the way it did maybe in the time of Life magazine, you know, or you know, other kind of iconic photo forums in the past. But I'm sorry, I don't think there's really an answer to that question. It's a great one though.
And it's in some ways, at least my experience is, it's an increasingly complex time, and we have changed as well. And we are really grappling with how we make meaning and understand things. I mean, with regard to Titus's question, I mean, I would have thought, you know, maybe 45 years ago or whatever it was, you know, the combination of the Washington Post and the New York Times with their reporting could appear to have a kind of direct effect on certain situations in a way that seems you know, quaint and nostalgic right now. It's not happening. I heard a great thing today in terms of this kind of, I'm going to say in terms of influence or causality. It was on a podcast I was listening to, and there were these people talking about neuroscientists and other people talking about cognitive things. And this guy brought up this thing. He said, Fred is a teetotaler. His father was an alcoholic. Understand that. Then he said, Joe is an alcoholic. His father was an alcoholic. And, you know, it's up to us to kind of figure these things out. I mean, it's not a game. I don't know that there's any answer, but this is what we have to work with. And we have to find, and I think John Lewis was spot on with that, you know, just that this is your time and you have to persist. with what is right, basically, in your heart. And that's all I know. I can't predict.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something we all, will continue to think about, I'm sure, as photography continues to evolve also, I mean, that question isn't going away, so. um,
I think one of the things that's happened at 6 feet that has shifted this is that, what context are we looking at the photographs in? And one of the things that's happened in the practice groups, right, this idea that we can't look at the infinity of images or even everything in our own hashtag stream. I mean, we struggle to keep up with that. But within the practice groups, there's a way that we get this beautiful and tender insight into the person.
mm,
by their sharing. And so that's a piece I think that I can forget about, that as folks come together in these practice groups and share these intimate images from their lives.
Do you think that is also maybe a factor of this moment that we're in? I mean, there's a kind of candor. I mean, the same thing with people impelled to kind of make diaries, which, and maybe we're in an age where people share, they share, kind of thing. But I think especially now, we're kind of like, I guess, whatever, we're aware of our humanity now because death is closer than it usually is, hanging around, I guess, and the fear and the anxiety and all of that, so in a way it's great that we are driven to share these rather personal, intimate things with one another, and it reinforces our connection in that way,
And also, to go to the other side of that, I was thinking of, I saw this thing a couple of weeks ago with Sebastião Salgado, an interview where he was talking about Bolsonaro and the Amazon and COVID and the in essence, genocide. And, Salgado, I mean, I was just so impressed by, I'm long familiar with the work. Has that affected change? I don't know. It's documented the times. It's echoed images that humans have produced for quite some time. It's contemporary at the same time. But actually seeing him being interviewed, it brought something else. I don't know if it will affect change, but here's a dedicated image maker in this whole resource, years and years of this careful looking and assembly at whether it's the workers or more recently the issues about the earth and its current, our understandings of its current situation, using photography that way. I don't know, maybe we reach a critical mass. I don't know.
One way or another, I think it's going to be, I mean, already the onus and the responsibility of photography is falling on the recipient, all of us, that is, more than it, at one point it was the photographer who would be, the one creating here. Now it's we who need to synthesize and take in what we take in and find the meaning. I think, so we hope people will be literate enough, visually literate enough to be able to do that. I mean, that's a hope.
And I appreciate that. I think it's another piece of that we're really celebrating these days is the craft and art of curation. And I think there is this other level of meaning making that comes in that process. Just like us sitting here tonight, none of us are going to see those images the same. We feel like, for me personally, I can speak, I'm feeling a connection between the images that didn't exist there for me before. And in essence, a connection between the people that didn't exist necessarily for me before.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
The work with Life at 6 Feet, you all are are doing a great service, I think, in creating community. I mean, it feels like that is so much a part of what has motivated this. And Susan, I agree, as we all have the agency to make images, we are also equally consumers of images. And so it is in our interest, and it is our responsibility to do that well.
I'm seeing, Bruce, I think I've let people now unmute themselves. Did you want to just come in with your thought? Can you unmute? There he is.
Hi, everybody. I was thinking about what Obama said today at the funeral about the photographs from the Pettus Bridge and the impact of them on Lyndon Johnson, that it lit a fire under Lyndon's ass, and it was partially responsible for the passage of the Voting Rights Act. And there are certain photographs that, when you all were talking about iconic photos before, that came to mind in my lifetime. The kid, the napalmed kid on the road, which, you know, even people who are not alive then know that photograph. The General Lone on the Saigon street, putting a bullet through that guy's head, that Eddie Adams photo, and you can see the hair coming out the other side. That had incredible impact on people. There are a lot of photographs now, but very few become iconic. And the word iconic, what that means, those are the photos that rise above all the rest and hover in imagination. And they do what you've been talking about, is they become part of moving people to act. And every so often one does. I mean, who watching this doesn't remember that kid on the beach, that drowned kid, or the Mexican father, or wherever he was from Central America, drowned in the Rio Grande, wrapped up with his son because they couldn't make it. And when some of us do political things, those images are very much in our consciousness and in our mind. So I think that is still, you know, really part of what we're about, what we do, and what's the importance of the kind of work we've been talking about.
Bruce, I would like to ask you a question in that context. So at the in the same time frame as the picture of the napalmed girl in Vietnam, or the man being assassinated on the street, was when Life magazine began to publish unexceptional army portraits of the American dead that came delivered to your house, so that every week you would then see the portraits of kids like you, families like you. And it seemed, and so this is an instance in which they're not iconic images, but it is that kind of distribution, in a sense, that really brought it home. Mm-hmm. And I think that may be happening. I'm wondering if you feel that played a part.
I think that's an excellent point, because what those images did, they're not iconic, and you just use the word home. They're the kind of photographs you have in your home. That could be your kid, which is what that series was specifically about. This could be your kid. Yeah. So it does. I wasn't saying that only the iconic images have impact. Others may too, in different ways, and that certainly did. Something else that happened about the same time Life ran that series was after the Tet Offensive. Was the first time American TV showed dead Americans in Vietnam.
Yes.
Before that, they had only showed dead Asians, and we saw coffins occasionally. No dead, and that impact on national TV of seeing dead Americans on the ground had a huge influence, I think, on public opinion. So it's both kinds of those things. It's the special, the dead kid on the beach, but it's also the ordinary that you can identify with. As I got one of those in my house. I mean, that's like my kid, and yeah, they both were.
I think that series of portraits in Life also was a way of quantifying the unquantifiable for us. You know, like, this is the number, this is hundreds, you know, this is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of faces. It's not just a number that you see printed. This is what they look like, you know. And so it brought, it not only humanized those faces, it made us able to conceive of how many were going, you know, and I think that that was just the fact of that also was powerful.
Which is what the New York Times has currently been doing with COVID deaths.
Indeed.
Right? I mean, who can conceive 156? What is that? Somewhere around there, 1,000 today. I mean, that's an abstract number. New York Times every week is publishing obits of individual people with photographs of individual people and saying, this is who. This is one of that 156,000. This is another one, and it's both people famous and not famous, and I think that's been an important series in exactly that regard.
And on the street for the underrepresented, it's say their name.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, Lydia, are you here? I saw you threw a question in.
Yeah.
Yeah, jump up.
Thanks. So, you know, I was thinking about the idea of the living room war prior to y'all starting to talk about this, but you know, thinking about the legacy of war photography, looking at like Matthew Brady and the staged photographs there, and then the context of the living room war, right, in the individualization of these named people with faces that we see ourselves and our loved ones represented in. And then back to that great question that y'all were responding to, the Fred Richin idea that Titus brought up too. I wonder if folks are saying, you know, it's not that these horrible things haven't happened before, they're always happening, they just haven't been recorded. But as you're talking about the Time magazine photographs, I still think of staging. I still think of intentional usage of specific photographs to evoke a reaction out of the readers or the viewers. Whereas now, because the dissemination of imagery and information is much more democratized, you're not getting the Time magazine formal version of something. You're getting the really ugly, messy version, and you're getting several different angles of it. And while Titus's question of like, you know, is it numbing us, or is it actually giving us a much deeper and deeper view, and also making us question our own complicity in it, and then how can we reckon with like the version of media iconic photos, the Burke Uzzles of the world, the people that are making those lasting images, which are still chosen by an editor. They're still put out into the world through a publication that is picking it as an iconic image. Do you know what I mean? So like, where does that all, you know?
Yeah. One thing I think when Life was doing its Vietnam reportage, it was such a powerful vehicle, you know, and such a kind of central, and there were just a handful of illustrated magazines that had that kind of role, I think. Now we have the New York Times. We do have some rather central, you know, platforms that many people refer to photographically. I mean, the Times and the Washington Post and whatever, and other non-newspaper things. But we have so many forums that yes, I mean, in a way it is a healthy thing that we're not having only one kind of edited version of the history that's unfolding around us. At the same time, you know, as Titus, I guess, also brought up this concept of numbing, you know, that an overload is confusing, and history is confusing. You know, the reality of our time is confusing, and so in a way, it's good that it's less simple now than it was at one point. You know, and so there's an honesty about it, but it's dizzying too, I think. You know, I mean, it's you can't sort through it. You know, and that's why, you know, we can't put our finger on the single image right now that means Black Lives Matter. You know, there are millions of images that mean that. You know, there isn't, at least for me, there isn't one that is doing, you know, saying that. And maybe there will be, 10 years now later, when we look back on this, maybe there will be a handful of images that do everything. But I have a feeling those times are maybe gone, you know.
So if I can, when I think of magazines like Life and etc., and I guess more contemporaneously then, I would think of something like PDN, which I know is gone now. So today I went to a Barnes & Noble for the first time in months to buy a book, non-photography book, but also, as usual, I walked over to the section where there would have or should have been magazines of photography, and there was literally nothing that I was interested in picking up, because, you know, they were, you know, these really pedestrian type, you know, type of magazines, you know, those sort of images that were of no absolute interest to me. And I wonder, when I think of what Life, Look and whatever used to do, was maybe provide some sort of guidance, you know, when we were talking about this iconic image. And for me, the iconic image is not for, while it's for the general public, but I think that the effect on photography is the effect that it has more on photographers who are doing that type of work. You know, so you get an idea of what, of when you go to places, what you're looking to do, you know, what's been done there before, and etc. So these things for me act as if they were some sort of guide, but there's none of that that's, you know, that's there anymore. And there's this, as you say, proliferation of so many photographers and with so many images. And then of course, there are no real platforms, or at least the platforms to get the work out have been tremendously limited. So what is it that we're looking at that's guiding us, that's explaining to us, that's showing us, that's doing all of those things for us? I mean, where do we go? I mean, there's just, on my IG feed, I have so much stuff that I'm looking at. I say, well, why are they doing this? And then there's the stuff that I look at and I'm just absolutely not interested in. And then, you know, there's some people that are doing good work that I say, oh, okay, gee, I've got to rise to that, or something like that. You know, it kind of sets a personal goal for me. But you know, but how do we? And I think that that's kind of important to me. It's kind of like having a lot of expensive silver, china, and crystal in your house, but your kids or grandkids, they don't eat with a fork and a spoon anymore. So it's like, what do you do with all of this stuff? You know, and I kind of feel that photography is kind of at this place right now.
Well, you know, I think the George Floyd video, for example, had a tremendous effect. It's not a still image, although the image maker remained remarkably still, as did two of the people in that horrific situation. But so I think that I can't predict what will be an iconic image. I have no idea. You know, I think our current version might be a meme or something like that, but something captures us, you know, and it took me numerous days to watch that 8-minute video through. You know, the earlier pictures, some of which we've referenced, whether the little boy on the beach or the girl in Vietnam, you know, in a way it was also felt pain of, if you're talking about the technical aspect of the era. But I don't know what makes something that, and it sounds to me like you're asking for guidance, in a sense, that your question is about what is the guidance for us in terms of making images of significant import like that. You know, I believe it was a woman, but in the George Floyd video, the fact that that person stayed there, that they stood up, they stayed there.
She's received, the woman who made the video has also received immense criticism for not acting while filming that
And
video. And that's, of course, that age-old
always been a
conversation.
thing with photojournalists.
Yeah.
You know, you're watching, or concerned photographers, you're watching, do you act, do you image? And these issues also, the same issues of, do we get numb from seeing too much? I mean, read Susan Sontag on photography, published nearly 50 years ago. Same thing. She wasn't the first, but are we becoming numbed by these? Are they spurring us to action, or are we just losing our sensitivity because we're bombarded? Obviously, we haven't figured that out. We probably never will, but we are still here every single day that we are here and have to be responsive and responsible.
I also think it's important that we ask who we is in this situation, because viewers are obviously not a monolith.
Absolutely.
In this situation where, like, there's a number of pieces that anti-racist literature at the moment pretty widely accepts that white people are severely stunted in empathizing with people of other races, particularly Black people. And when we start talking about numbness in terms of image viewing, we have to say that it's not even across the board. And how can we interrogate ourselves as viewers and notice when we are becoming numb to content? And because we're not just photographers, we're also viewers and readers.
Yep.
Mo, I think I just read your comment while you were also saying that, and I think that you're bringing up a really important point that also relates to how we've documented past atrocities, which is that overwhelmingly the gaze has been a white male gaze, right? And so war photography and being able to see ourselves projected in imagery of white soldiers who were killed and things like that, like the numbness of whiteness is a very different than the lived experience of people who are seeing photographs of themselves being subjected to violence again and again, and it's a very different thing. And I think that your point about empathy in your comment is really significant. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. I agree. I mean, it's something, I guess, that I don't even know how to put this, but those of us who are involved in the medium of publishing, I guess, like me, you know, I feel like so much work has to happen now, you know, and it has started. I mean, I have to say, I've seen it beginning, but there's so much work to be done now to address this very question, and to address, you know, to not only to address new audiences and find out where they are, but to bring that, you know, to bring those same other people who have not been involved in the decision making of publishing to the other side of the screen. You know, I mean, that's what needs to happen also, you know, and it's happening slowly, too slowly, but it's happening.
Is there anyone sitting on a question that hasn't had a chance to speak? I know we are a beautifully dynamic and energetic crowd, and I know sometimes the quieter among us can have some trouble sneaking in. Anybody have a question or thought? Huh?
I see Sandra Stark raising her hand.
Sandra, jump in.
You may have to unmute.
I've given her permission, but let's see. There she goes.
Yes.
There she is. Hi.
Thanks, Eric. This is a little bit different from what we're talking about, but it was something that I saw recently that I think people might be interested in. I can't think of the guy's name. Who's the director that did The Thin Blue Line?
Errol Morris.
Thank you, Errol Morris. He was being interviewed through the Boston Globe, and they were talking about a series of photographs that were going to be in the Smithsonian archive. I can't think what that's called either. The Smithsonian Permanent Archival Record of photographs. And they showed this picture of, you know, one of the protest marches, and the pictures were being applied to be in the Smithsonian archive, and the brand new curator went in and he took out all the names that were on all the signs. Like if it said Trump or it said, you know, down with Trump. So Errol Morris showed us the two photographs. One was the original, which was like a pretty straightforward documentary photograph. And the other were people holding signs that were blank. And that was the work that was going to be put into the archive, which is so disturbing beyond anything that I've seen recently. And I think the Globe is going to invite the curator to come and give a talk about why he feels he can alter documentary photographs, which is such, you know, even though you think like you crop, you frame, you've got the picture that you love, and then it's going to go into the Smithsonian and it's completely altered, which is just like what can go on with Photoshop, but this wasn't really about Photoshop.
I hadn't heard about that, but it seems amazing, and so I'll be curious to see what that's about, because I can't imagine that, you know, the Smithsonian isn't going, if they're keeping an archive of what's going on at this time, there's going to be a protest sign that includes the word Trump, I bet.
But also, this was such a wonderful presentation. I loved hearing what people said and stuff. And I guess the comment I'd like to make is this notion that we have to be photographers and we have to be humans, which I completely agree with. But I think problems arise with people's kind of point of view and vision if you're always thinking about that. It's like you can't critique your work while you're actually doing it. And the fellow that I think Titus, who was asking before, I wanted to ask him, like, when he's looking through the magazines, what exactly is he looking for? Like, and that, yeah, I agree, we're all photographers now, but I still think if you learn to if you learn to think critically about photography, that separates you from the horde of people. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. I do think, you know, the more kind of literate we are when it comes to images, the better off we all are, you know, whether we're practicing photographers or not. I think it's good for us to understand how to go deep into photographs, you know. I think it's healthy. So.
One of the things I love about these conversations is we never know where they're going to go. And so it's just, I appreciate the dynamism of each group, the incredible places that we can end up. And Eric, I didn't know, you know, we that very first grouping that you shared, we wanted to do that in silence, but I didn't know if in closing you wanted to go back and share your thoughts and reflections. I know it's kind of a jump and funny segue, so I hate to be abrupt about where we are, but there was that possibility of you coming back and just reflecting a little bit on those early silent images, and if you had a desire to do that.
I don't really have a desire to do that. I mean, I'm happy to go through them if people would like to see them, but actually, as we are at the close of this, I think it's better to even just let them linger.
Good.
And as you say, we can provide you with the attributions if anybody is interested. And this is recorded, apparently, yes.
It is, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So you can come back and visit and watch the first, 40 seconds, and there you'll have it.
That sounds fantastic.
Show, actually, yeah. Yeah, let's do that.
That's fantastic. And then I'm just going to do a couple of quick closing announcements, which is to say, I mentioned if you came in late at the beginning, this engaging and interacting with content that's been created through the 6 Feet Project, especially since with Lydia's here, she was our original visionary around the Instagram and creating this visual democracy platform. So when our curators come and look at that hashtag, often they have no idea if they're looking at an accomplished famous photographer or a 12-year-old child snapping pictures on their mom's iPhone. Like, everybody is there together, and this has been an incredible and encouraging part. And I love what Sandra said and others are saying about how we come in and contextualize and bring meaning to those images through thoughtful reflection and thoughtful conversation. So next week, Judith Puckett-Ranella, who is the photography director for Entrepreneur Magazine and was also the director of the New York Times Style Magazine and most recently Vanity Fair. She is going to be doing live portfolio reviews. We decided on that this afternoon, so just be patient with us for a day or so. Come back to the 6 Feet website. There will be a new submission portal. You can submit 5 to 10 images. We have no idea what she's going to pick. I do have a little hint, though. She really is fascinated and interested with photographs that really make you feel like she's looking for those really personal, intimate, stirring, moving reflections. So nothing polished, nothing perfect. Feel free to pull out your recent images. It does need to happen within this time, depending on what country you're in. It might have been sooner than it's happened here. And we're going to keep this going and keep inviting folks to join us. If you're on this call and you're a curator, editor, gallery director, lover of photography, please send me an email and say, you know what, I'd love to review. We have guest curated galleries on our website. That means anybody who wants to create a gallery can send me an email. I'll give you access to the back door of where we store all those images, and you can create a thematic curated collection. And just in closing, I'm so grateful, Eric and Diana, that you started off our curatorial phase 3 of this project with such thoughtfulness and beautiful reflection, and just so grateful. And we know, like, putting those photos together, that was a time-consuming, generous act on your part, and we're so grateful for y'all doing that.
Thank you for inviting us to do
the opportunity. Yeah. My favorite part about Zoom is waving goodbye to everyone. It's like my version of the hand contact, of the contact, and I'm serious, so thank you all.
And we hang out here for a few minutes if you have questions. Diana and Eric don't have to, but if you have questions about content or 6 Feet stuff, we'll be here for about 5 minutes, and feel free to hang around and ask any questions you might have.
Diana, don't we have another Zoom cocktail party to get to?
I think so. I've got the tequila ready. Okay, yeah.
Just kidding. Thanks,
oh my gosh. Thank you all so much.
Great to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for signing off. Thanks. It was great.
Wow.
I'm just going to put a call out for any archivists who happen to be on the call to get in touch with us. Archivists or librarians, just
thank you. Thank you for including that. Yeah. Yeah.